Hello and aloha pa everybody. My name is Abbas Tamori. I am the elder of Baha'u'llah, the actual representative of God, the maker of this universe and the planet Earth. I know it's not believable for you, but God has been planning this for a few thousand years. He promised that I should be starting a series of speeches and talks. I could have been writing this, but I just don't have the patience to write. So rather speak it, and I'm going to talk about the revelation of the Bab. You all know about the Baha'i Faith, most of you, probably those who are listening to this, but not a whole lot of you have heard about Baha'i Faith. In the Baha'i Faith, what is known as Baha'i Faith, it has two phases, really, two phases. The first is the revelation of the Bab, who came before Baha'u'llah, who himself is the major manifestation of God, just like Baha'u'llah. But his mission is way smaller and very, very concise, revelation. So a lot of Baha'is, or the non-Baha'is, they don't know about Bab. It's a murky subject. I have seen many scholars, non-Baha'is, such as Dennis McCoyne, Edward G. Brown. These are non-Iranians, Europeans, and Persians, both Baha'is, Babis, and Muslims. Everybody gets in there. They are just falling themselves into a black hole, and every one of them, they just made big time mistakes. So because I'd seen this, I decided to unravel some of the complications and mysteries, especially a few things that the recent book that I read, Gate to the Hearts, is written by Mr. Nader Saidi. This must be the most, I think, elaborated book that is written in English, not about the history of the Bab, but actually about his revelations of the Bab. The book basically is handicapped because the topic is difficult. Not that Mr. Nader Saidi is not a great scholar. Definitely he is, no doubt about it. But the topic is big. A lot of things has to be done before even we start to talk about the revelation of the Bab. I'll bring these things up. But tonight I'm just going to give you a background. So what you know as the Baha'i Faith has two phases. Baha'i Faith, which is the Bab, just like John the Baptist, who comes and talks about coming of Baha'u'llah. So Baha'i Faith is not separated, neither from Baha'i Faith, nor from Islam Faith, nor from Christians, but is connected to all of this religion of the past, because they were all manifestation of God. It looks like a school of God with different messengers at different times, teaching different things based on the needs of people. But this Baha'i Faith is a plan that has been underway for 6,000 years. Now, studying this under Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, it is possible, but when it gets to Hinduism and Buddhism, it would be, again, the subject is murky, and it's difficult to speak about it right now. But there is definitely a certain relationship in the revelations of Hinduism that the two prominent figures, Krishna, Lord Krishna, and Lord Buddha, Mahatma Buddha, right after him, are exact resemblance, these two revelations, to those of Old and New Testament, to those of the appearance of Muhammad and Imam Hussein. So, you read in the book that says God has created the world in 6 days. And in Islam says the same thing. God has created, within the 6 days. And everyone thinks that 6 days, meaning in actual days or 24 hours or something as such. I feel pity that the greatest scientist of the time, my favorite one, Stephen Hawking, trying to refer that to the Ice Age. Last Ice Age, it was about 10,000 years ago. And he's thinking Bible is accounting for that, which is nothing to do with that altogether. It's completely a separate subject. In Quran, a day of God is 1,000, so as in the Bible. So 6,000, 6 days is really 6,000 years, which begins with Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and this 6, in a period of 6,000, at the time of Muhammad was 5,000, and 1,000 years after Islam, the 6,000 years is over, and that is the beginning of the Baha'i Faith, at the end of the 6 days. So, when we're studying such a huge conglomerated franchise of the prophets from Adam to Noah to today Baha'i Faith, it's better to know a little bit of a background. I did speak in, I think, number 4 or 5 of my videos about the evolution of the ideas. I'm going to have to go back to that topic, backtrack it, and bring back those ideas again one more time to tell you where this Baha'i Faith comes from. I spoke before that essentially the question that comes in the mind of the early man made people to respond, and those responses eventually created what we know as mythology in different places of the earth, and one of which was those of the Hebrew mythology, if you like to call it, which was directly the work of God, and others, they were work of man. And today's is there too. Like you have a Baha'i Faith, but you have many other ideology alongside of the Baha'i Faith. They're coming in competition or in an attempt to bring it up, such as Marxism, such as communism, such as the Constitution of the United States of America. They're bringing ideas, but eventually the right one, the fittest, will survive, and the rest of them, they will go away. This was the case with the Hebrew mythology, that every one of those religions or mythologies, they died out because none of them was responding to the need of the people. People were growing up, they loved their partner, let's say spouse, as a result they loved their children. They learned in the course of time an ethics that, naturally they do not sleep with their daughters, eventually with their sisters. And these divisions of the emotion was developing, and then the mythology of the Greek and others would not fit this, because those gods, they all married their sisters and their daughters and whatnot. That's why they were all left out and nobody paid attention to it. But out of the Hebrew mythology, the story of Adam and Eve, now we're evolving into religions, such as appearance of Abraham. So the Baha'i Faith goes backtracked right to the Abraham. Abraham, the prophet of God. This accounts, to a lot of people, they study science and history, and those, they say, well, these are all mythology. It's not. The expression that we have might be murky because it's such a long time, but truly these are stories, are not stories, they're actual facts. There was a man, a manifestation of God called Abraham, who directly was in contact with God, and who directly told him all the way from northern Iraq, somewhere, city of Ur, to go all the way down to Saudi Arabia. Imagine 4,000 years ago, what would that land be? I doubt that there was anything there at all. Why would Abraham go there? So the story of Abraham is that he had 2 wives. He had Sarah, who couldn't become pregnant, and then he had a second wife, Hagar, who was an Egyptian slave, really. And this Egyptian slave became pregnant, and a son was born called Ishmael, we know of. And the story says that Sarah was a woman jealous, couldn't stand this, and God said to Abraham that you have to go. But why wouldn't you go to the neighborhood? Why would you go so many thousand kilometers down south in the middle of nowhere? So as he comes all the way down there and basically leaves the Hagar there and the child. Muslims have very elaborated stories about these things, that Hagar was looking for the water, and it was, I think, about 6-7 kilometers. She would go back and forth. That is why today Muslims, when they go to Hajj in Saudi Arabia and Mecca, it's called the two stations between them is Safa, Mana and Safa and whatnot. Between these two stations of Safa and Marwa, I believe, they actually do the steps that Hagar was going after the water. And they say that from the tiptoe of the kid, the baby, as was scratching the ground, a fountain was formed. They call it the fountain of Zamzam, slow. That's what it means, and they celebrate it. Now, many thousands of Arabs have been there for the last 4,000 years, and they all believe in these stories, and they know it hand to hand, chest to chest. It's been gone, and that's what it is. However, after Abraham had the child Ishmael from Hagar, then at this time Sarah became pregnant as well, and there was a different son called Isaac comes. Now in the course of time, you can see as these things they go, then we have the manifestation, a new manifestation of their Abraham, which is the manifestation called Moses. And Moses is the one who essentially institute the entire institution of religion as we know it in the Middle East, in Europe, is by him. As it has been told, was raised by Pharaoh, so he knew all of these things. And when he come back to his people, he decided to have all those chronicles from Adam, right, Abraham and Joseph and all that to be written down. So he's the one, the big brother of Christianity and Islam. But the religion of Moses takes such a long time, maybe 1,500 years, before it was recognized, before it was established as a universal religion. For some strange reason, those days, nobody would pay attention to the Israelites, although they had the greatest book, definitely at the time. Except, by the way, the famous Persian king is called King Cyrus. So they made thousands of movies in Hollywood, but they never made a movie from King Cyrus, who is the Messiah according to the Jew. Look at the book of Ezra and the book of Nehemiah or Nehemiah. You would find he is the one who emancipated all the Jews at that time and freed them from Nebuchadnezzar, who was enslaving them. And this great Persian emperor, who has a cylinder, it is right in the British Museum. You could, I found a replica of it in the Jefferson Library in Washington D.C. And there, this emperor, he gives the freedom of language, freedom of religion, and freedom of work. Something apparently that wasn't free at those days. It created a lot of things. This very amazing emperor he was. And my personal belief, Iranians, they don't like to hear it, my personal belief is that all his greatness that he had, and the kings after him, 3 of them, Xerxes and Darius, I guess the one who made the Suez Canal, he actually made it for the first time. They were definitely under the influence of the Jews of the time, and they were nourished spiritually from the book of God, which was the Torah, the Old Testament. It is impossible for King Cyrus to come up with this ideology that he had without being influenced by the book of God, especially the prophets of God such as Ezra and Nehemiah or Nehemiah. They speak of him, of the anointed one. They were expecting him to come. So undoubtedly they would have approached him and tried to talk to him. And this is why he heard what these people are and decided to free them from Nebuchadnezzar. But having said all of that, King Cyrus could not establish the religion of Moses. There is no record that he became a Jewish man. No. He was not a Zoroastrian either. Some kind of a Mitraism maybe he was. But he definitely speaks of God, of Ahura Mazda, in his writings. But his affiliation to what type of religion is very hard to say. Like him, by the way, there was a great king like King Ashoka. King Ashok in the northern India. He was just as great as King Cyrus. And I will be speaking to you later on that in our century, in our time, not exactly our time, but a couple of centuries, just before the Bab comes, we have appearance of such a great, really great figure, a great transformer, as Karl Marx likes to call these people, that I have seen in the history of mankind. There were 3 of them. King Ashok of the India, northern India, who was a man of freedom and a lot of great things. You have to go on the internet and study for yourself. So was King Cyrus. But believe it or not, the 3rd one is George Washington of the United States of America. This man is ranking same as these 2. Now I will be speaking about him a lot more. This is the purpose of this talk. But going back to my talk, but in reality, the religion of Moses didn't go around. It took 1500 years for appearance of Jesus Christ. Like a flower, like a cactus. It takes long time to give a flower. But it did, and that is Jesus Christ. This period of 1500 years. But that universalized the Christianity. It went all over the place. Who's teaching? The teaching of Moses, in fact. Because Jesus did not abrogate the Bible, the Old Testament, except for a couple of new laws that he brought. Essentially, it was the same thing. But the religion of Moses and its proliferation by Jesus Christ, universal factor, it did not work again in Europe. Europeans were difficult people. Why? Because some 500 years before Jesus Christ, some of them, like Socrates, they went to the Middle East, they brought ethics. Again, they could not become followers of Moses, but they understood ethics. Because in the Greek, if you read the chronicles of the world, it was passed by the law that the boys, they could have homosexual relationship. This is good for them. It's written in the book. It was the law. And Socrates comes and tells them these are all wrong. Marrying, incest, homosexuality, and a bunch of things. And he died, actually. You can call him a martyr of science. But they were familiar with these things, European, Greece. And the church, trying to deal with this, they found the book of Bible is a very primitive book. compare the writing of Aristotle and, Apollonius, Plato. It's not even close. They said this is nothing. If we allow those books come along, people reading those things, nobody's going to believe Bible. So they shut it down. They said they censored it. Now, that's what we call Dark Age. So it helped Christianity to take over the Europe, but it was a big blow to the science, though, because it could not integrate with the science. It was always a problem. That the Pope and every one of them, they always try to stop the ideas of the scientists. They thought, the sun is not the center, the earth is the center, and you know all about that. Patholomy, stereopatholomy, and geocentric and heliocentric ideas. So they were stopping them, and scientists always had conflict at church. It was just working at each other like virus. One would delete the other one. They could not integrate themselves as one entity. But God had something in the back burner. Some 600 years after Jesus Christ, from the son of Ishmael now. You remember? Two brothers, Isaac and Ishmael. From Isaac comes Jesus Christ. From Ishmael comes Muhammad, the prophet of God in Arabia. Prophet Muhammad, and basically, essentially the way he was, is very much similar to that of the Moses. As soon as he comes and he dies, the successorship that he intended to Imam Ali was taken away from his successor, and others people, they came into power, for sometimes denying Ali and sometimes accepting it, but essentially they just put a damper on it. This is where the beginning of the Sunni and Shiite comes. So the successor of Muhammad, instead of being Ali, it became Abu Bakr. He died after a few months. But the second one, which is Omar, very much celebrated by the Wahhabis and the people in Saudi Arabia, he was not a Muslim. This man was nationalist. And he wanted to take over the world. So at those days, Ali was the right hand of Muhammad and the sword of Muhammad and the conqueror, of the time, the hand of God, the general basically. He was asked to take the troop and attack Iran, and Ali refused. He said that is not the way to go. It happened in Ethiopia that Muhammad sent his commissioners, messengers there, and Najashi, the king of Ethiopia, became Muslim. And Ali told them, from Iran, somebody called Salman, came all the way from Iran to here to find Muhammad. These people they know what God is and everything else. We should not attack them. We should send messengers and talk to them and, possibly convert them. They are ready for us. But Omar had no patience. He says to Ali, what is your problem, Ali? I would go rape all their women, kill all their men, and after 20 years, every woman is pregnant. What a new boy, half of it is Arab, they speak Arabic, they're born to be Muslim. What's your problem? Ali said, that is not what Islam is. You don't understand this. This is a political way covering it with Islam. The whole idea that you have Omar is nothing but politics. You want to take over. And then Omar would say, what do we do with all the soldiers? They're hungry. And Ali said, let them go to farm. I'm farming. Let them go to farm. War is over. Now, the fate of God is on the ground. And Ali did not say that. So they start to accuse him. Up and until today, they don't call him Arab. They say to him Musta'arab, which means an Arab immigrant. Why? Because they're all from the Ishmael, who is the son of Abraham and coming from the north. They call him an Arab immigrant. You are not Arab, you don't have the blood of Arab, or else you would have helped us to take over Iran. And Ali said no. They stayed away from it. So, this Arab nationalist Omar, and after that, worst Osman, comes in and attack Iran, and Iranians, they were scared so much from the word Allah. They said, this is the one, the taboo. But they only took south of Iran, and not that many soldiers. But because Iranians, they were starving from having books and writings and the freedom which the previous religion, Zoroastrian, would not let them to have that. It was so bad that some prophet would appear in Iran, named I think Mani. He had to, his book was drawing because people couldn't read and write. He had these drawing books of the drawing. That's how he was preaching his faith. And the Zoroastrians, Magi's, if you know, they took him right over and killed him and destroyed him. So Iran was in a situation that with all this great civilization that they had, they were not letting people to get into books, except the book of Zoroaster, copying the Christians. Christians were doing the same thing. They were not letting them. Or some of them copied from each other, you know. Definitely Zoroastrian started this first, and maybe Christian, they took it from them. They thought they have to stop science among the people because then they questions authorities and churches and everything. All right. Persians could not do what to do with this. Some of them, they liked Islam, but they were afraid of what they do and everything else. But this nationalist movement after Muhammad come down to, as I said, first to Abu Bakr, a few months died, come to Omar, 11, 10 years dies, then comes to Osman, another one, Khalif or Caliph, which are the Sunnis, you know, successors of Muhammad. And he made a mistake by appointing his cousin to the Syria, north. And believe it or not, at this time Ali was not young anymore, was old. The Muslims themselves, they told him that after Osman you should be the leader. And Ali accepted it only to fix things up. As soon as he came in, this cousin of the third Caliph, his name is Muawiyah, he came against Ali and he said, no, you are not the Caliph, I am the one. So Muslim had two Caliphs, two kings at one time. The story is long, I'll tell you more about what Islam is. At these situations, ended up the defeat of Imam Ali, and he was assassinated while he was on the prayer with the knife. His son to come into the power, and they poisoned him. So he couldn't. Hassan, his name is Hassan, he's the beautiful. Hassan could not continue. This story fragmented, and the angle that it started became larger. Now Muawiyah, the cousin of the third Caliph Osman, died, and his son Yazid came into power. This Yazid was absolutely not Muslim. One was in Syria and was completely nourished and nurtured by the philosophy of the Greek. They did not believe in Muhammad at all. They were just talking about it, sure, but in heart they didn't. So the brother of Hassan, Hussein, comes in and he decided to kill him in public. Imam Hussein is a very special character. As I said, tonight is not the speech. I have to give proper time to speak about this. So Imam Hussein with 72 people in Karbala, which is somewhere close in Iraq, close to Baghdad, which his followers, they were all massacred by the regime in a most ferocious possible way. They cut the water to them in that heat for 48 hours, and children, were all assassins, killed actually in public. Iranian, they saw this, they said, wait a minute, these Arabs are real bastards. This Hussein is the grandson of the Prophet, and this is how he dies, by them. A new notion happened in Iran that Abu Muslim, which is somewhere from the west, northwest, somewhere close to Afghanistan, he decided to get all the Iranian generals together on this issue, that it is not just Iran, he said, it is actually the religion of Islam, which we found what it is this, the one that who died, Hussein, for us, because his destiny is just like us. He is our friend. He is the one that we have to. On the taking revenge from his killing and everything else, Iranian, they came after about 40, 50 years, they finished the entire dynasty of Arabs. They're all done in Iran, completely. It didn't take long. Except that Abu Muslim, they brought some other people in power because they were Muslims, and called Abbasid. The Umayyad was the previous one. Abbasid came in. As soon as the first one came into power, the first thing he ordered is to kill Abu Muslim because he's dangerous. So the matter continued. But what happens here is that, let me go back to my talk, that just like I draw these affinities between Jesus Christ and Moses, this happened in Islam only within a period of 60 years, not 1500 years. Muhammad comes, and 60 years after that, Imam Hussein, his grandson, comes, which is exactly like Jesus Christ's figure, because he was so forgiving. For example, he took his baby, 6 months old, and he said to the enemies, I'm in battle with you and fight with you. You don't kill this baby. He wants water. Don't give it to me, just a little bit of water to baby. Even before Islam comes, you would exempt children as small as this baby. But instead, they took an arrow and shot the baby in the throat. And Imam Hussein took the baby up to heaven and said, God, forgive them. They do not know who I am. Please don't take revenge from them. And that's an amazing story. It reminds so much of Jesus Christ, that he's asking forgiveness for his enemy. And that affects Iranians. This is why they remained Muslims. Not the type of the Saudi Arabia that we have right now in Kuwait and Dubai and all these countries, Sunnis, no, but they started their own. They said, this is the Islam we accept, nothing else. So we see in the world, the idea came to Abraham and he dispersed it from 2 children of Isaac and Ishmael, giving rise to Christianity and Islam. But Islam, unlike Christianity, was a different windows from God, a much more updated windows. The entire Bible is only one book. Maybe the word of Jesus maybe 10 pages. But if you just see the book of Quran, which is the book of God, aside from that, the saying of Muhammad outside of the book of Quran is several volumes itself. And there were 12 Imams after. Adding it all together, it becomes literally 100 times bigger than the Bible. They had a lot of knowledge, a lot. Christianity, it was too much into magic and strange stuff, miracles, and things that are not real. Islam is a very realistic religion. These stories, the miracle as such is not there. For example, Muhammad says, my biggest miracle is my book, if you can't bring one like it. And no one could. Definitely they couldn't. Nothing like it at that time. If you study the whole world, there was nothing close to Quran. Especially the writing of Imam Ali, his successors, it's definitely, obviously, clearly incomparable with any mind of the such at that time. You have to read it in English to believe me. But these two were really coming from 2 brothers, Islam and Christianity. He just passed about 300, 400 years after Islam, somewhere around late 10th century, about 11th century. They come back together again. Muslims and Christians. You know what we call that? Crusaders. Leonardo Fabiocchi and those guys, they translated lots of these books from Islam into the European language. And this created a renaissance in Europe. Because Muslims, they were so advanced, incredibly. I've sent one website for you. It's called Islamic Contribution to Medieval Europe. It is right in Wikipedia. Islamic Contribution to Medieval Europe. Just read it for yourself. It's mind-boggling how much they were ahead of everybody on the planet, in every department, even in statistics, even in the government, even in the secretarial work, in farming, in name it, in medicine, in physics, in chemistry, in every department. Christians, they were just astounded by it. So at this encounter, you could see it as a battle, as a war, as a fight. But you broaden your mind, you can see the two brothers, they came together. Muslim, they hand out the entire knowledge that they were supposed to have, but because of their location in Europe and closer to, they didn't have, they handed all those books to the Christians. The Europeans, they got those books, they translated, and they rose against the Pope and the system, transgression, the religious theocracy. And Europe became free by the Muslims, by their knowledge. And amazingly, after they did this, Muslims, they stopped the progress, the speed of the progress, the line that they were in from before. They just stopped it. It seems a different job began. Muslims, they didn't understand Islam. They couldn't distinguish between the successors of Muhammad, who was the right. So Abu Muslim from Iran came and attacked them, destroyed that, to bring in new ones. Thereby, Iranian became Muslim, but they were not asleep believing in all the 12 disciples or 12 imams and successors of Muhammad. Mostly they were Ismailis, following only 6 imams. They didn't get it still. So the second time, God, once you can't do it, He'll give you a hand. He says, okay, I'll give you a hand. God gave them the hand. And who was that one? It was the Mongol horde, Genghis Khan. He came, punished Iranians so bad that they said, and the cats in his way would kill it. Nothing should breathe in his way, he says. It was a huge fiasco. The worst, definitely the worst massacre in the world. Completely, the cities would be completely vanished. No man would breathe in their way. They would kill. Just Mongol hordes. And he was saying to them that God is punishing you. I'm the punishment. God has sent it to you. But this made the Persian to think. Amazingly, this collusion, this accident, made them to think. They understood the successors of Muhammad should be 12. And a man called Safiuddin Ardebili from the north of Iran and Azerbaijan began to start something big. And they started to defeat the Mongol hordes. In fact, his son Hulaku was killed by them. He finished them off. And for the first time, a regime in Iran came. It's called Safavite, who believed in all the 12 disciples of Muhammad. For the first time, Shiite religion, the true religion of Islam, came into power. Safavids were great in every department, but still, people did not have a lot of interest in learning how to build or mechanics or this or that. Everybody was interested to know, what is God? Who are we? What are we doing? There we have the Sufism. They create a lot of different ideologies, technologies, methodology. For example, 7 cities of love. You start from seeking and then you end to become manifestation of God. A procedure. So many books was written. The whole idea was that we are like a hollow reed. Like a reed. If inside it becomes hollow, God will take that and His voice comes through it. That's the human. That's the writing of Rumi. So Iranian, they were into this because they were preparing to do a different job. So what was the job that happened after the Crusaders? Among the European English people were the most interested in seeing all these books. They translated the book of Avicenna, was taught in Oxford for a long time. The canon, they call it, of Avicenna in medicine. They thought that, what if we go other places? What else is in India or in China, in Africa, in America? This was the idea went in the head of the British. They wanted to go more, to learn more. They were curious. And by God, they did that, and they enlarged the vocabulary of the English language, the knowledge of the British people, and there all the scientists comes right from England and Europe. Your England alone equals the entire Europe in producing scientists. This is a small nation. Very amazing. God gave them the contract. That's in the evolution, the fittest, the best. Go build Canada, United States, Australia, New Zealand. Build a new world, set a new standard. That is what the British did. Their counterpart, the Spanish, they were only gold diggers. After the gold, they go get the gold and put it at Isabella's palace. They do nothing. All the South were suffering from them. They didn't bring anything useful to the native. But British, they did. They were not gold diggers. They came here and built Canada from scratch. This was their job. So when we look at Canada and the United States, and essentially the Western world, it's all started from the Renaissance at 12th century by the leading by England and the rest of the European to have these new countries. But there's a problem in the West. It's a huge problem. Too many things are made every day without management. Just keep popping out. So many digital stuff, so many devices with no consequence of what these things are going to do to people. Call it free enterprise, not understanding a telephone change the culture, change the relationship between people. People are not going to visit each other so much because they have a phone. Do you know the consequences of these things? Now that texting is added, people don't want to even talk, just text. Then it creates a big gap between the children and parents, and they can't hand them the knowledge and the wisdom. Management of the invention is lacking in them. They can't manage it, it's too much. They keep bringing more and more laws and the rules every day. The whole Canada is overruled, overlawed, so much. Entire city of Trichy of 1 million, couple million in India may not have even 50 policemen. In the city of 150,000 people in the world, there's 500 police. It's strange, man. Why so much rules? For who? These are civilized people. You know, all these rules eventually has turned the West into a jail system. You have to follow that path. Invisible. If you don't, you get zapped. What do we do about it? The second brother. These are the effects of the brother Isaac. The brother Ishmael have founded Islam, initially brought all these sciences, gave it to the European, has to come, because they left these things and they went to know. Why? Because Baha'i Faith, God was landing in Iran, as it is prophesied in all part of the Bible. Baha'i Faith comes there. As a result, now we have a world initialized by Abraham, by Isaac, by Moses, by Jesus, to create what we have. The social, material structure, beautiful, much better than before. And Baha'i Faith, a divine spiritual management, like a soul and a body, to infuse together and create a perfect world. This is the underlying grand scheme of God landing on the 7 days. I had to say this before I get deep inside it. I'm going to talk to you next time something of a relationship between the Christianity and Islam. Then I will introduce to you what Islam is, because you don't know well, or all the thing that you hear is all second-hand material. It's not original. And then we take on to come to the Bab, which is the founder of Baha'u'llah, and analyze his book and his writing. May God be with you. Allahu Akbar.